Wilbon compared Jordan to two other athletes, and he said those three, and then it's everybody below them. One of them was Muhammad Ali, and I'm struggling remembering the other person because he was like, it's Muhammad Ali, somebody else,
and that's it.
And Michael Jordan.
Was it Tiger?
No, it was an older player.
Oh, okay.
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, yeah.
Yeah, it was Ruth.
Nice.
Was it Babe Ruth?
And I think, and John,
now I don't agree with him.
I think his comparison was greatness on the court, field, whatever, bigger than life outside, and just like, I don't know, like a myth about him.
Yes.
Yeah, his thing was like the alpha male. His list was Ali, Ruth,
Babe Ruth, and Michael Jordan.
And
hey,
Jordan.
You know what? If there is a sports, Mount Rushmore, those three, it doesn't matter time, era. It's like their impact on the sport is inarguable.
And that's how
still is.
And that's how Tiger either is now or Tiger will be. Tiger changed.
No, I think you put him up there. Golf was about to become like not a sport anymore until Tiger Woods showed up.
Yeah.
And now they're doing special pay-per-view or whatever they're calling them now, specials with like Tiger and did you see that Tiger, Phil, Peyton, and Tom Brady special that they're having?
Are they going to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's confirmed.
That is
Tom Brady.
Like,
Tom Brady. They're all like talking shit to each other. It's awesome.
When they did, when there was no Masters on the golf channel, they did a whole bunch of older tournaments and they showed the highlights. And up until Tiger big breakthrough was 96, 97. Just what the players wore and their sponsors, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I still think the late 90s was like a few years ago.
Yeah,
but
it was.
Right.
These guys had these like thick cotton shirts, golf shirts down past their elbow. It reminded me of Babe Ruth's jersey.
Yeah.
Big, baggy, and they had hats. You know the hats that had the rope right in front of the brim here? They're all wearing that. Like even the
Sports Authority opening day giveaway
yeah.
hats.
If you guys have ever seen the movie Tin Cup, Kevin Costner's got all these patches on his shirt. That's what all these guys wore. And then Tiger came out and, he wore Nike, which was unbelievably cool for the PGA Tour. And I have no reason behind this, but I won't ever buy anything for golf that's not Nike. Like I have an Under Armour golf shirt that the tags are still on. And when Tiger stopped using a Nike, Tiger stopped using a Nike golf ball, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? What do I use now? What do I have to go buy? And I bought the same ball that sponsors him. I'm so hooked on. That's how I buy my golf gear is based on what Tiger does.
I was watching Parks and Recreation. I started watching Parks and Rec from the beginning this week. Season 1, episode 1, and like midway through the second season, Ron Swanson like has sex, and then the next day he comes to the office in like the red golf shirt and the black pants, and they cut to Tom Haverford, and he's like, when Tiger Woods feels invincible, usually Sunday during the Masters, he wears the red shirt, the black pants. I have an all red shirt that when I'm feeling real good, I've had like a good week, I wear it to work, and I make sure people see it in our like video conference calls. I'm like, yo, I'm wearing red like Tiger.
And you give it one good fist bump.
I go, yeah, another doctor.
That's so good.
Going on a beer run.
All right, Kev's getting a beer run. One last thing I just wanted to say about Jordan and the documentary was the crazy thing about how they all hated the owner. Amongst all of them, it was like very obvious that they just didn't like the owner. But they were like, Scotty, Rodman, Pippen, Phil, we can't all leave and just go to another team. So we just have to stay here and technically be on this guy's payroll.
So I knew that they hated Krause, right? They hated the GM. I just couldn't imagine coming off 2 championships. You tell the coach, we don't really want you back, so we'll sign you. This is your last year. And we're telling everyone this is your last year.
Yeah.
Obviously now in retrospect, it's the wrong decision, but Like, if they sign Phil for a 5-year contract, do they convince Jordan to stay for 2 more years?
Yes.
It will give you $100 million to stay for 2 more years.
They blew two more championships, or like
100%.
they blew a lot of money. They flushed a lot of money away because they had to wait until whenever the hell Derrick Rose was drafted before they had anybody who was exciting in that stadium.
They drafted Elton Brand. He won the Rookie of the Year, and they immediately got rid of him. I think it was 2 years later.
I didn't know Elton Brand was drafted by the Bulls.
Yeah.
But I didn't really, I wasn't really a Duke guy. But I knew it was like, out of all the Duke people who, have been through the NBA, it was like, oh, this guy's really good.
Yeah. I still think the greatest Duke player who did get drafted was Jason Williams and lasted 1 year. Still behind Bobby Hurley, my second favorite Duke player of all time.
I'll tell you who ended up having a great career from Duke, who probably no one thought he would, is Redick.
Unbelievable, right?
Oh my! I was just gonna say,
unbelievable career.
I was just gonna say, like, he was a guy that you paid way too much for what he does, but he does it pretty perfectly. He nails you.
He knows how to do one thing. Yeah,
he got drafted by the Magic, couldn't get playing time. They would put him in only. He got into a Kyle Korver role. You're gonna go in to shoot, and
stand on the baseline.
He put on like 20 pounds. I don't know. He got kind of big. He could get his own shot. He was unbelievable shape. And then as soon as he got the sleeve tattoo,
I was going to say the tats gave him just like an attitude.
If Kenny wasn't asleep, I'd ask him to look up how much money Redick has made in his career. I bet you he's made $100 million. What's the frequency?
Let's not compliment him. He snorted Quaaludes 2 hours ago. So let's not say that he's asleep. He's
JJ Redick did?
No, Kenny.
Oh,
that we don't know about, but Kenny for sure.
What's the frequency, Kenny? I could do another hour talking about the documentary, at least.
Yeah, I know, and we're only.
There's 8 more episodes.
I heard that just a little teaser, a little preview. The next episode is about Jordan having to. Well, part of it, because they flash back and forth, is about him having to go to Vegas because Rodman. Fuck. I probably should have read this thing twice, but at one point Rodman was like, "Yo, I just need a break. I gotta go to Vegas."
Yeah.
And Phil told Jordan, and Jordan was like, "Well, then we're never gonna see him again."
Yeah.
and he was right, and he had to fly to Vegas, and Carmen Electra was hiding under the bed. Sorry. Rodman was on one of his benders.
Rodman asked for a vacation, and he didn't know how long, and I think Phil Jackson compromised that you can go to Vegas for the weekend, and told Jordan, he's like, "No, we're never going to see him again. You can't go to." We haven't even touched Rodman's storyline within, which is going to be.
Just wait, it's going to be beautiful.
It's got to be awesome.
The Pippen revelation of the contract was so brand new news to me. That's a big bomb to drop, and I had no.
And the surgery. No idea that he could have gotten it, and he basically took half the year off.
And I remember that season being like, "Oh, well, Pippen will be back in 3 months. Okay, that'll be right when the good teams really start to try, and that's when the Bulls will go on this tear." So I remember watching SportsCenter, and they were all freaking out about the Bulls being 500. I was like, "Yeah, Pippen's not there."
So let me ask you this: last thing on the Jordan thing, if Krause doesn't say that thing about Phil and keeps Phil, doesn't pay Pippen, Pippen's disgruntled and leaves after that 98 year, Jordan doesn't retire. So now Phil, Jordan, Rodman, everybody's back except Pippen.
Yes.
What happens in 98 or 99?
Well,
do you think they win?
The New York Knicks played the San Antonio Spurs in the 1999 NBA Finals. And we all know that was the beginning of the dynasty where they won 5 championships in 15 years. Imagine if it was not the Knicks, and that was the Knicks, a completely revamped Knicks. There was no Ewing, it was no Starks, it was no Oakley. It was a new Knick team, and that was the last time the Knicks, I think, made the playoffs, or at least
was that Allen Houston?
Yes.
Was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was oh shit, the Knicks are going to be amazing. No, they're not. Wow, Chris, that's so amazing that the very next year was the beginning of the Spurs Just
Crazy, right?
a team
Timing.
that you were afraid of every year for 15 years.
But how fun
I
would
just-
it
I
have
just-
been to see Pop versus
Yeah.
Phil?
Oh, that's what I'm
Unbelievable.
saying, man.
At
their
like
peaks,
end,
yeah.
at the end and at the beginning. So the year the Knicks, I just looked it up, or Kenny sent me the info. He's on his way home. He texted me.
I thought you were asleep.
He the Knicks were an
Texted me.
8. The Knicks were an 8 seed that year in the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the Heat with I think with Lonzo Mourning and those
And
guys.
that was when their rivalry was awesome. They were like the new Pistons Bulls.
And then they beat the Hawks, and then they beat the Pacers, who were the 2 seed,
Oh,
and then they got to the final. So the 8 seed. So that year Jordan would have been up against that Miami team.
oh, with Zoe or no? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. But who else was on that team? I don't know. But
Tim Hardaway?
anyway, Pippen or no Pippen, I can't imagine they don't get through the East. And then they meet the Spurs. That would have been pretty interesting in '99. Anyway, carry on, John.
The 1999 Miami Heat roster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does have. Look, this is so great. It has Tim Hardaway.
It's got to have Marley.
Also has Dan Marley and Jamal Mashburn, who I remember they made a big trade.
Mash.
It also had Alonzo Mourning, Terry Porter, Mark Strickland, Rex Walters, mentioned earlier on the back of my Shaquille O'Neal rookie card, and Clarence Weatherspoon.
Spoon.
Former Sixer. Spoon.
Spoon-fed. That Pacers team they were good those years. Jalen Rose, Reggie Miller, I think Rick Smits, that Travis Best.
Wow.
They had a good team for like 3 or 4 years.
Dude,
Yeah,
the Pacers were the team that I thought would rise after Jordan and the Bulls, and that team dismantled, because if it wasn't the Knicks in the playoffs, it was the Pacers that like took you to Game 7. You know, like they had such a complete team. Travis
They had some
Best,
great series.
Al Harrington, Mark
The
Jackson,
Reggie Miller, Spike Lee dynamic.
Chris
Yeah.
Mullen,
Mullen was on that team, yeah.
Jalen Rose, 7% Rick Smits.
Rick? Schmitz.
Wow.
Sam Perkins was on that team, I think, too.
Yeah, Sam Perkins, Zon Tabak, Jeff Foster, Dale Davis, Austin Cruz.
Dale
Got it. I got to take
Strong.
it. I shall return.
All right.
John, I know you mentioned about Chris's background earlier, but it's so comforting to see.
Yeah, dude, isn't it? Like I look over it and I'm like,
I don't know how you guys. I don't look into the camera. I look at you guys when I say anything, and I'm always looking like what's around. And for Chris's, I'm not. Like I see it. I know what's there. I don't know. It's weird to describe.
What scene do you think is about to happen? Like, I just saw Kramer walk in the door and try and answer the phone.
So there's anytime that George and Jerry are on opposite couches, like on the chair and the couch, it's always a good scene. Oh, because the one that brings that I come to mind with, George quit his job. He used a real estate company, and he couldn't use a private bathroom, and he was trying to figure out with Jerry what job to do next. And he's like, "What? I like history. Maybe I could be a teacher." And then he said, "I like sports. I could be an announcer." And Jerry goes,
you
they
always say I make interesting comments. Don't
"Yeah."
you?
Well, they tend to give those jobs to ex-ball players or people in broadcasting. It's really not fair.
I love Jerry. I know. I wish the bathroom door was closed, because there were very few moments, but there are scenes in Seinfeld where someone is in the bathroom, and whatever the two people that are in the main room are talking about, the person in the bathroom will like, it's usually George. Actually, I think it's only George will like contribute. How was so-and-so in that movie? Oh, unbelievable. Unforgettable. I've never seen that.
One time, George came in, and he was like, "Well, I got to do something." And he went to the bathroom, and then Kramer comes in the front door, and he's like, "I got to do something." George is already in there. The episode the other night that I DVR all of them, and then I flip through when I have nothing to watch. There's one episode that is so...
Break it down!